All right. It is October 16th, 2025, and we are live. I am obsessed with the panel that I've got today. We have legendary podcaster Justin Schenck. We have motivational speaker and leadership coach Andre Young. And we have Todd Resnick, the CEO of one of the most juggernauts of wealth management companies on the planet. And Todd, I know your compliance department's already blushing, but
No. It's all good. All good. No one's paying attention to those few words. It's okay.
Todd, I want to talk about the job market. You are an employer who has done things right over different economies. We have a weird economy right now, in my opinion. You don't have to agree, but a weird economy, a weird job market. A lot of new graduates are pessimistic about this job climate. Todd, talk to me about your secret sauce. I mean, how are you guys scaling and hiring in this climate where a lot of people aren't scaling and hiring?
Yeah, I thank you for having me. First of all, it's great to be here and get to meet everybody and spend some time together. I think I can only speak from my vantage point. If you had somebody on here that was in AI or high end tech, it might be a very different perspective. What I know right now is our industry, which is wealth management and specifically the RIA space, which is like the independent wealth management space. There is so much rapid growth that the number one thing you see across every survey and across every conference you go to is about hiring the right people. And we really focus in our company. We focus not so much on where we are today, but we really are always thinking, okay, 12 months from now, where do we need to be? Where are we going, and what do we need in place to get there? So we're already thinking, all right, who do we need to hire in 2026 to manage a business that we envision, even though we're not at that business point today. So right now we're about to hire another compliance person. We just hired another finance person, another marketing person, 2 more ops people, and that's just within our little business. So if you multiply that across our entire industry, I think there's that common mindset of we always have to be prepared for what's coming instead of built out for where we are today specifically.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you mentioned AI. I mean, has that changed your hiring practices? How has that been integrated into OneSeven? And second question. I mean, last I checked, you guys are several billions in AUM. Talk to me about that latest milestone.
So we've grown. We started off 9 years ago at about 250 million. We'll end the year close to 9 billion in AUM, and we'll have grown to about 105 advisors across the country. And so it's interesting when we hire, and we actually help our advisors hire people as well. We don't get fancy. We still old-fashioned put out the job posting on various websites, but we're always very mindful of identifying the right people to fill the role based upon what we identify the job attributes are personality wise and the expectations of that person, and if they're really going to meet that, right? And we want really strong alignment, and that's how I think you create the right person in the right seat, and you don't have somebody leaving after 6 or 9 months because of missed expectations of what they thought the job was going to be versus what you actually end up asking them to do.
Mm-hmm. Justin, you and I feel like we kind of came of age at the same time in the same community, Berks County. We kind of came of age at a gnarly job climate. I applied to every Philly PR agency when I graduated college, and nobody even gave me an interview because the job climate was that bad. Entry level jobs I was applying for, there were people who were laid off with 3 to 4 years of experience applying for those same jobs. It was gnarly. And Justin, I know you have an unconventional path. I have an unconventional path. Justin, talk to me about your experience and what you're seeing now.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, when I look at when we were coming of age. I think I might be a couple years older than you. So I was in the job market before the crash of 2008 and everybody was losing their jobs left and right. I was actually in staffing in 2008 when everybody was losing their jobs. And so it was the idea of like, okay, well, I ended up losing my job and they called me back 6 months later. So I was fortunate enough to keep that job. But the one thing that would set somebody aside, right, if I'm speaking to a student who's in college, is be willing to put in the work that's going to give you the skill set in your career, even if it's not in your career. The first thing I did at 19 years old, since I didn't go to college, was I got a job in direct sales. So I learned communication, I learned leadership, I learned public speaking, I learned sales, I learned all these things that then geared into so much more, which ended up growing into me getting a job, which they said it required a bachelor's degree minimum. They wanted a master's degree, but they hired me because of the selling of knives, right? So, if the job market isn't there for you, get a job that pushes your skill set, stick with it, do well, work hard. And I think those are the things that are going to get you hired over somebody else, even if it's not in your niche, right? Like Brian, when you started applying to PR jobs, nobody's hiring. But think outside of the box. What's a connecting type of job where you can apply to that might get you in there later? I think we live in a world of instant gratification now, which is really difficult to combat because we have iPads and iPhones where we push a button and we get what we want. Jobs aren't like that. So sometimes you have to stick it out and you have to work your way up a ladder in order to move into the career or the position that you want. And so I think that kind of set me apart when markets started to crash, was I had the capability to handle the job, maybe not exactly what they wanted, but I was able to communicate my way into any position that I wanted. And so I didn't fear not getting a job. It was like, am I happy here? Right. I know when I got laid off from staffing, I was like, I've got to do something. And I ended up selling lawn services door to door. Skate by for a couple of months and then got back into staffing and kind of worked my way up. But it was one of those things that if I didn't have that skill set, I wouldn't have been able to navigate that market. So that's what I would recommend to young guys and women entering the market is get the experience, even if it's not in your specific field. That will set you apart.
Can I just add something on that real quick?
Yeah.
So one thing I tell everybody, I start off as a financial advisor at 27 years old, literally not knowing what a financial advisor did. And I got hired to this team of guys hired me. And I really took the mindset of, I'm going to not only learn everything, but I'm going to make myself so important to their operation that they're not going to be able to get rid of me. And even when there were moments where they actually threatened to fire me, one person specifically, I overcame it because I just took on the mindset of, I'm going to do anything. It doesn't matter if it's making coffee. It doesn't matter if it's building a presentation, whatever it is, just make yourself so valuable to whatever it is you're doing that they just say, you know what, we can't imagine life without Todd or Brian or anybody else. And don't look at anything as below you, right? So even when I started my firm 9 years ago, I cleaned the kitchen because, you know what, someone had to clean the kitchen. And, I didn't want to clean the kitchen, but it's what I did because it had to get done one way or another. And Justin, you're right about the mindset of young people nowadays. I'm raising teenagers. It's incredible. It's not cliche. It's very true.
So Todd, one more question, and then we're going to Andre. When you see Cutco on a resume, what do you think?
It's funny. You brought up selling knives, Justin. I wouldn't think. I walk through Costco and I see them selling knives, and I think of all the stories I've heard over life of so and so became a multi-million-dollar author because they sold knives. There's so many people you hear that started in that space and learned so many different things about themselves, about the business, about building relationships, how to sell, whatever it is. It's incredible.
Todd, I would say that too. Even walking through the mall, sometimes I'm attracted to the kiosk people. You know what it takes to stand there on your feet all day, approach strangers, make eye contact, smile, make somebody want to come to you. Like, I can teach you some other stuff if you can bring that to this business every day. So I love what you're saying about that. And, I wrote down some things as you guys were talking too about the networking. I'm big on how do you enhance your communication, your connection, your culture, and results. And you could do all of that, with different skills that we learn, but through networking. And then if you're selling yourself, that's huge. I have teenagers as well, and I have a lot of people reach out and they say they want to do what I want to do. And I'm like, well, I'm not just a professional speaker. I sell all day, but I don't sell my product. I sell me. So I sell Zoom calls. And, I want to be on a Zoom call with you for an employee. You may not get the job, but ask for the Zoom call. Let's connect. And LinkedIn is such a huge way. You got past the gatekeeper. There's no gatekeeper anymore. LinkedIn, you have a direct path to the director of HR or the hiring professional. Love to get on the Zoom call. What do you want to get out of bringing people like me in? What can I take off your plate? This is my superpower. What do you need most from me right now? And then once you start getting those answers, you can match it to your superpower. You can customize something or know what you have to create. Or you say, hey, this isn't what I do. This isn't my field. I don't want that. Yep. Well, so that's a huge part.
And Andre, let's piggyback on that. So the current job climate, it's dreary for a lot of new graduates. What, piggybacking off of your comments now, what would you recommend to them? How do they stand out?
Well, I think they stand out with their personal leadership, number one, and then their actual skill set if they have it. And if you're fantastic at what you do, great. However, when you apply on Indeed, you're one of 400,000 asking for that job. And then with an AI bot picking through, how do you stand out? So I would really say, get back to basics. You can do the old school handshaking networking events like I mentioned before, because connections matter. Connections matter. So being able to do that, whether it's via LinkedIn, asking for Zoom calls and wanting to connect and know more about the company and them and how you could be of asset and have a conversation at the least, or going to these networking events, and most people network for them. They go in trying to either sell themselves or their product. And when you go in being curious about that other person, and I say, hey, Justin, okay, great. What's been good about your day? Or do you come to these? And, what is your business? And then it's, hey, look, I want to come in with a goal. When I was old school networking back then, I came in with a goal. I want to get 3 calls or meetings in my calendar before I leave here. So I walked in with a win, an idea, a vision. So, hey, Justin, it's been great talking with you. I do want to meet some other people, but I'd love to stay in touch. How about we get on a Zoom call? I'm available this day, time, or this day or time. And while you're pulling out your phone, they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Otherwise, you play the circle back game, or, hey, I meant to talk to that person game. And you can put that right in. And then once you get 3 of them, now you can relax. I could relax. And then when you're relaxed and not desperate, you can have real, genuine, casual conversations, and more opportunities come your way after that. So I would tell, I have kids in their 20s, I have a teenager. Get out, learn how to talk to people, make eye contact, smile, get curious, get the meeting booked and the conversation booked, and ask about their pain. And either you have the medicine or you don't.
And Todd, you go to these conferences. I mean, what is your reaction when you meet people? There are people at conferences who want to meet Todd Resnick. I want to hear your.
It's funny. My first reaction when you asked me that question is I hate conferences. I'm like a extroverted introvert. I can train myself to be extroverted, but I do actually get and it's probably the same for any. Imagine you're like a post-college grad, right? And you're walking into your neighborhood chamber of commerce looking for a job. It's so scary and overwhelming when you go to conferences and you walk in, there's 5,000 people and here's a bunch of people that know each other and they're having fun and they're having fun. That's not my thing, right? I don't enjoy that type of experience. I'm really good if I can create an environment where it's 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3 or 4 of us sitting at a table, talking, collaborating, sharing. So it's not, again, I'm not going to sit here. Andre sounds like he has a game plan of how do you succeed at networking, right? And I would talk to somebody like an Andre like that. What I was going to say that made me think a lot about it was my experiences. I've never gotten a job without knowing the people that were helping me get that job, right? So even if you're using a networking event to meet someone that helps you springboard to the success that you're looking for, you leveraging, whether it's your parents. My first job out of college was through a college professor that linked me up with a student that had the job that I ended up getting. And then my second job was through someone at that first job. So I'm very big on, you never know who's going to open that door for the job you're looking for, whether it's a parent, a teacher, a friend's parent, whatever it is. So that might be your goal of the conference or the networking events. Like, I'm just going to go there and meet people because by talking to them, it might lead to the end of what I'm looking for of any job, whatever that may be, depending on the circumstance.
And can I add to that too, Todd? Because I love that. Is sometimes people simply forget to ask. Do you know anybody that can help me? Would you be willing to connect me? This is what I want to do. And sometimes people, or my cousin this or that. Sometimes we simply forget to ask.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing, Brian, and then sorry, I know you want to move this along, but as these guys were talking, I was thinking about, like, we live in a new age, right? Like, there's new modalities, and Andre talked about a Zoom call and all these things. I found the power of networking is finding out how you can support that other person, or having a conversation beyond just, hey, this is how I want you to help me, right? Like, my Rolodex of connections is ridiculous because I've been podcasting for 9.5 years and I'm connected to so many people. I was on a Zoom call with my mastermind group, and the one person's like, I want to record a podcast and I'm writing this section of my book about that connects to Disney World. And I go, I know the former president of the Magic Kingdom. I'll connect you. You can interview them, right? So, like, my Rolodex is ridiculous in any direction you want to go in. Now, if I was a college student who said, I know how to record a podcast because it's super easy now, a $60 microphone and Zoom, right? I can do that. Let me reach out to leaders in my field, in companies that I want to be hired in, and say, hey, I've got a podcast that's focused on this. I'm a major in this. Would love to have you on my podcast. You then interview that person without the thought of, hey, maybe they'll hire me, but build rapport. Imagine interviewing that person, impressing them with your skills for 45, 60 minutes. They're going to think about hiring you afterwards. And so in a world of technology where all of us grew up, when we graduated high school or college, like, the internet was kind of new, right? So, like, you have to think outside of the box. So what can you do differently to set yourself apart and not make it about yourself, but make it about them? And in turn, they will find a way to make it about you.
And Justin, I mean, I consider you a master connector. There are connectors in your lives. They're the best people when you're an entrepreneur to have in your circle. Justin, you have connected me with so many people. I hope I've connected you with some pretty cool people too. Can you talk to me about the importance of building relationships with those connector type folks?
Yeah, I mean, it's game changing. Those people who want to connect with others who are like-minded is absolutely mind-blowing. I actually have somebody in my sphere now. His name's Devin Sizemore. He was actually at my event back in April, who is literally, without a doubt, the greatest connector I've ever seen. And in my world, I'm like, oh, how can I do more of that, right? Because I will never forget Devin. No matter how many people I meet from this day forward, I will always remember Devin. But the connections are the things that change the game to get to that next level, to talk to that next person who might move the needle for you. They're ultimate game changers. But more importantly, again, going to kind of back to what I said before, is like, I always go, who can I connect you with? And then I find those people go, hey, let me connect you with 3 people. I often share a story about a guy who I had on my podcast years ago named Fabio Viviani. A lot of people know him from the show Top Chef. He owns restaurants all over the world. He ended up, after our call, I was like, hey, who do you want to know? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, I'll tell you what, who do you want to know? And then he ended up writing 50 individual emails to 50 people for people to be on my show. We're talking celebrities, massive entrepreneurs, all these big names, right? And I will never, ever, ever forget that person because of that. But guess what I did for him? I then connected him with 50 plus people that helped him do something that he was working on. And so I think the connector is the person who wants to help, but also understands that at some point it comes back and pays dividends.
Todd, I mean, you're, again, running a juggernaut wealth management company. How has that connector personality helped you over the years?
I think it's the same thing as Justin said, right? I always have a mindset. If it's a friend, a colleague, somebody I know who's just looking, whether it's looking for a job or looking to do something, it's just that mindset first of how can I help them? It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's an email, a phone call, a text message, whatever it is, and you just help someone. And if you do it without the intention of what am I going to get back for it? Because look, my business is bringing financial advisors to my firm to help them build the business they want of their dreams and live the lifestyle and the work-life balance that they've always envisioned. Not everybody knows people that are going to fit into that for what I'm doing. That's okay. Because at the end of the day, I just have this mindset of like, it's all going to come back to me. There's the abundance mindset that we all, many people can naturally have. There's the mindset that some people wish they had. It's just how I've always looked at it. Like, it's all going to be okay. I'm just going to take some time to help somebody out. And if it ends up where they then make they bring someone to the table that's a perfect fit or a good person, no, great. That's wonderful. Yep. And again, I think we can go back, probably each one of us could think back through our entire work careers and history of like, who was that one person or who over time, those people that just took a moment to make an introduction or to help us. And when we do the same thing, it just comes back tenfold, if you will.
Andre, who was yours? I mean, was there that one person?
There's been several people. A couple people that come into mind was, my high school football coach. I mean, one, you saw something in me and you connected me to colleges. I got scholarships after playing 1 year of high school football. Like, that was amazing to me. My first job out of college as an adult, I worked in a mental health facility. And that was intense. And I had a gentleman named Kaz come up to me and he said, I like the way you work. And this place over here where my wife works, I think would be fantastic. So I went from working 1 to 11s in a mental health facility to working in a mental health school, and my hours were 8 to 2:30. Like, do you know what that meant for me and my family? I had a young daughter at that time, and now I'm home to be with her. And that lasted for almost 19 years, me being in that place. So that's just been absolutely amazing. And then from what I do for a living and being a professional speaker and author, when I go somewhere and I do a great job, people connect me to other places. And I also, even speaking, old school, I have a referral list right here. So when somebody, I get on a call and I say, what do you want to get out of bringing someone like me in? And I get to match it to what I have, customize, create, or refer. That's my refer list. So now I can connect because we all don't have to do everything great. We don't do everything. So for those individuals who do what I don't, it's an honor to connect you. And I'm honored to be able to reach out. People reach out and say, I want to do what you do. Would you meet with me? I always say yes. Now, time frame may vary, but I say yes. If I can help somebody collapse time frames to success, fantastic. Let's do that. So, and we just created an AI tool that will definitely help them, which takes me out of the forefront so much with travel and different things.
Yeah. So this is off script, but we touched on a few sales techniques, and I feel like people tuned in would kind of like to hear some of our sales techniques. I have never cold solicited a single client. I've had my business for 11 plus years. Have never cold approached anybody. All my business has come inbound. And I'm 11 plus years in now. I'm at the point where I get consultations where I'm trying to convince them not to hire me, but they still hire me. That's when you're a good salesman, when you're literally trying to not sell the person. You're doing something right. Justin, you've had exchanges like that, I know. Can you talk about your business development approach?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I've been through every sales training you could possibly think of. We could talk Sandler, find the pain point, and do all the things, and blah, blah, blah. For me as an entrepreneur, which I've been a full-time entrepreneur for almost 9 years now, which is wild. But when I think about that, I go, I take the Gary Vee approach, which is jab, 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 right hook, right? And I love this concept of give value, give value, give value, give value. But when I know I have something great that would benefit you, I have a conversation with you. And so for me, everything that I do, and I'm not a service-based business or anything like that, but it's simply an invite. Hey, I want to talk to you about this thing I'm working on. I think you would love it. Let's talk about it. And we have that conversation, and it's an invite. And so from that standpoint, it's become very easy for me because I've built my business that way. In past years, when I've sold services and my prices have gone up, and people go, whoa, you're a little bit more expensive than somebody else. My favorite thing I learned, and this is from Cutco Knives, going back to that, there's a line that I tell everybody, which is, look, I'd rather explain to you I'd rather explain to you the value today than apologize for poor quality later. And it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, wow, like your price can continuously go up as long as you're adding that value to that individual. But for me, sales has become easy because it's a simple, hey, let's hop on a call and have a conversation. It's an invite, and most people are willing to come along for the ride with me because that's all this is, right? It's just a journey we're on.
Yeah. And Todd, I don't know for a fact, but I can almost guarantee you've had advisory firms come to you where you knew it wasn't a good fit. Can you talk a little bit about those exchanges?
Yeah, I've had to learn that over time, right? It's funny. My wife just said to me today, because I work from home, so she hears a lot of my exchanges and sales pitches and whatnot. And I've never really gone to a sales training. I was told to become an advisor by someone who said it's all based on trust and relationships. Everything else you can learn. And I've just really gone. My sales process is never basically just always be there. And I get people who come to me saying like, I picked you guys because of just the feeling I got from how you just never stopped trying. You always followed up with me. You were always there. You were always responsive. That's just who I am. But to your point, back to your question, I've had to learn the hard way of not always trusting my gut where it's just not the right fit. And we've had that happen. We've had bad results sometimes, not like, the worst things you can imagine, but we've had some people come in that just were not the right fit for us culturally. We have 4 core values, and we really try to stick to using our core values as does this person or these people fit the core values of who we want to hire and fire and have within the organization. But I think now I'm getting better at saying, you know what, just my gut feeling. There's nothing else, right? The numbers all add up. The money is there, the all those things. It just doesn't feel right when I'm on the phone with them. They just don't respond well to things. They're pushing on me. Like, I don't like being pushed on of like, this is what I want. This is what I want. I'm like, you know what? Okay, we're just not the right place. That's fine. Someone else is good for you out there. There's always the right model for everybody in our industry.
So, Andre, final thoughts on this before we shift into office politics?
Well, my sales approach is really, I call it be the chicken. And it's like when you go to the mall and you walk past and the lady's out there and say, you try this chicken, and you weren't even thinking about the chicken, and now your whole family's eating the chicken. So I'm a big giver, and I'm being the chicken. So I love, when I first started my business, I wanted to, I feel like I had a great product, buy it. And I was hoarding it. So, over time, I learned, just give the information away. Like, I gave my content away, and I have a schedule in which I do it. I don't try to hoard it. Here it is. And what I did learn is just because you're giving it away, it doesn't mean you're making money. It doesn't mean that people know what you do. So then it really came down to now I'm asking, I've given enough away that I've earned the right to ask for a Zoom call, not the sale, but the Zoom call. And then on that call, hey, what are you experiencing? Do you bring people in like me? What do you want to get out of it? And it never ceases to amaze me. And when I ask most leaders that question, their eyes kind of roll back because nobody's asked them that before. And they really have to think like, whoa, well, what is our issue? Or this is what it is. And now I get to match it to what I have customized, create, or refer. And that it's been a very, very simple process. And my thing is I work with the ready. If you're ready, we'll find a way to work something out. And if you're not ready, it's okay. We may cross paths later, and I'll never be less expensive than I am now. So it's all okay.
So office politics. I want to start with politics because it bleeds into it. I don't remember. I've been on this planet for nearly 40 years. I don't remember a more polarized political climate in my life. And it does seep into the office. People are very eager to disagree with one another. It fractures work relationships. It fractures family relationships. It fractures a lot of things. I'm Mr. Moderate. I mean, I try to be the guy in the middle. I'm the least popular person at the party because I'm Mr. Moderate. Not a good place to be right now when everybody wants to pick a side. In big workforce environments, and Todd, I'll lead off with you. I mean, has that become an issue?
I mean, we only hire based on whichever party is in office. So right now we're only hiring Republicans. So it actually really simplifies things. No. It's funny. It's a good question, but it's one that honestly has not impacted us. We've really, I think, created a culture where it's when we're there for work, we're there for work. It doesn't mean we can't all build personal relationships. We love being, we have people all over the country working for us, and we love bringing people together. We have a conference. Our annual conference is coming up in a few weeks. We had a staff conference this summer. We've just never really created a container for that sort of relationship. Your beliefs are your beliefs, whether it's religious, political, and you have the right to do what you want with it. But when we're at work, we can all find the commonalities, the things that we need to be connected upon. And it just has not been an issue for us, which is wonderful, and we have people, again, 100 advisors. I've got people that fall all across the spectrum. And again, we just try to focus on, hey, here's the things we're here to support you in these areas of your life. There's other places where you can get support for those areas that don't fall within our purview.
Andre, with your consulting, have you come across this?
Maybe one time within an organization. It's not as prevalent as, so I don't hear it a lot. However, my concept on how to lead through it is very much like Todd had mentioned. I'm big on having your leaders three, because your leaders three make your yeses and nos and your difficult conversations not personal, but more practical. So for example, like my leaders three for my organization, we will be the best in our space of leadership and work-life harmony. And the vision factors to make that happen is we need to create great content. We need to network appropriately. We need passive income. Our expectations is that everybody's positive, passionate, and productive. One P without the other two is always going to be a problem. And then we have our rules. So when we start talking about politics or religion or something coming from the outside in, well, it's an easier, difficult conversation to have. You say, we can't be elite. Look, this isn't about networking. It's not about product, enhancement. It's not about passive income. And it's certainly not in our 3 Ps of positive, passionate, and productive. So therefore, it doesn't have a place here. So very much like Todd said. So now it's not about me personally telling you to stop talking about politics and this and that. It's not fitting our value system. It's not fitting what's going to make us elite. Therefore, we need to be able to address work when we're at work. And that way, so it makes my yeses, I need to make my yeses powerful and my no's meaningful. So when I say no to that or we're not doing that, it's because it's in our framework, not because it's a personal attack that I'm telling you to stop.
Yep. And Justin, what have you seen, in this landscape?
Look, I haven't been in an office setting in a long time. Here's my take. Here's my take on all of it. Social media makes everything seem so much worse than it really is. This is why these two leaders who lead an office, who talk to many offices that are abroad, go, this isn't as big as an issue as you think. Why does it feel so, push and pull right now? Because of social media. Like honestly, if social media wasn't a thing, you wouldn't know. You'd be in your own world. You wouldn't even know somebody disagreed with you. I say rewind the clock, go back to not talking about your politics like we used to, and be a little bit happier, because the reality is I don't think it's as big of an issue as it is. I certainly don't. It doesn't bother me no matter where you land. I've had people on my podcast from both sides. I've had people speak at my events from both sides. And the reality is that's the part that doesn't matter. What matters is, are you a good human being? Are you willing to pour into others? And what are you doing to move the world forward? Social media tends to be a real drain and brain suck. And, I try my best to avoid it. Other than some conspiracy theories, that's a whole nother conversation, but I love those.
Justin, somebody said something the other day, and they were talking about social media, and they called it something I haven't heard before. They said it's an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And as a former mental health therapist, I used to tell people all the time, one of the most dangerous things in the world is to be walking around with only your idea in your head. with nobody to challenge it, nothing. So you're always right. Now you enhance that by 1 billion on social media. You're constantly getting what you believe and what you would be willing to die for on a loop with no commercial break. How's this individual? How are the people supposed to feel? So it's this in this echo chamber, and that's all you hear. And I love that. Being able to put your phone down and be able to recalibrate and be a human being is just absolutely amazing.
So Justin, I want to go back to you. I called it office politics. We started with, politics, but within offices, there are politics. We've seen a resurgence of bullying in the office because a lot of people were not going to the office for a couple of years, a few years ago, and now they're back in there and they don't know how to behave. And a lot of people are behaving like high school bullies in the office. Justin, what have you seen? You can disagree with me. I can pull up reports, but there is office bullying. There is office politics going on. So I heard. I'm at. You and I are out of the office. So
I'm probably a bad person to start with because again, I'm not in the office. If you're in it, I want to speak to this quote unquote bully that's apparently in the office, and you're picking on people like you're in middle school. Grow up, number one, or get out. And other than that, like if that is truly happening, like wild times. And God bless them all. But I think Andre would be the guy to talk to this more than me because I'm so removed from that scenario that. And I'm just the person that if I ever find myself in a place where I feel bullied or I feel whatever, I can easily remove myself.
Andre, unpack it, please.
I've seen it all. I've seen companies that operate, so amazingly, like Todd, runs his office from what I hear and all of the great things I've heard from him. I've heard other companies where there have been near fist fights in the boardrooms and the yelling and the screaming and the family business that I really dislike that F word for family businesses because I can fist fight with my brother today and we'll be okay tomorrow. However, that same premise goes into work and all of a sudden you start to grow and then you're walking around telling people to do this and their need to, believe in everything and sacrifice everything like your brother or sister or mom or dad, and the business has outgrown that family thing. I've heard and seen it all and a lot. And I have another book, my 5th book, coming out next week. And there's a chapter in there called A Leader's Professional Abuse. So really quick, I was brought in and, one of the higher ups said that this woman, her direct report, wasn't taking initiative a lot. And they were contemplating getting rid of her. Now, I spoke to this woman. And within 3 minutes of having a conversation, she told me that at her old job, she was told to shut the bleep up on multiple occasions. She was told that she was stupid and go down the line. So now she's at this job. She's gun shy to speak up. I don't know what I'm going to be told. I don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of times we don't know the professional abuse that our people may have suffered before us, professionally, personally. So I tell anybody that's being bullied at work, number one, you're allowed to have differences. There needs to be sometimes healthy conflict. So every conflict and confrontation isn't the worst thing in the world. However, when it is verbally abusive or physically abusive, please let somebody know immediately, because a lot of times people know who the bully is. They know who they are. And when your silence, when you break your silence, that might be the last straw. You don't know. We don't know how many times they've been addressed, written up. They're on their last leg. But with our silence, it just gets to skate. So able to document those experiences, share it with your proper HR person and higher ups or above, and be able to stand up for yourself, because they can't help you when you or we don't say anything. And when you've said something and nothing is changing for the better, no one is waking you up at gunpoint to take you or bring you to this job. There are there are other places. So you always either stay or leave as an asset, never a liability. Right? For the people doing the abuse, there's certain type of characteristics and people out there that are taking advantage of people who will let them speak to them, in a certain way. And I can't say it better than Justin said is, grow up and things like that. If you're that type of person that gets off on that, it's not likely that you are going to stop, because why would you? So the advice for that type of person is really exploring, what are you doing? What impact is it having? Do you have an A team that's allowing this, or people that are addressing this with you? Are you willing to look at it in yourself? And if you are on a board or a committee or part of the higher ups and you see this going on, you have a responsibility, an obligation to bring this up in team meetings with a suggested solution, and asking them what do they like about your idea, or what would they fine tune about it. Bringing it to somebody's attention, and I do not promise that you're going to get the response that you want or desire, but I will promise you're going to find out who and where you work for. You're going to find out what they are, and now you have a decision to make.
Todd, have you seen this? And I'm not even talking within your organization, but you're well connected with a lot of folks in this industry. Have you seen bullying and
again, I think I think everything, Justin talked about social media, all these definitions, and I'm not here to downplay it, right? Everything is so gray right now as to what's bullying, right? Like what, 20 years ago, what might have been like leadership and direction has changed now in terms of how we treat other people at work. So in some regards, and this might be controversial, like I think there is I'm not going to say a softness, but the dynamics within the workplace have changed a lot. But at the same time, the world has changed a lot. So we have to adapt in terms of how we're working together, treating one another, and what passed as okay in the 80s and 90s before I was in the workforce obviously doesn't pass today. With that being said, we run our company using EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and we create core values. And everybody at the company, whether they're a contractor or an employee, it's really about living up to those core values, in terms of the way you lead people, the way you're being led, and the way you're treating clients and all of those things. And we aren't afraid. We had an employee, I don't know, a year or two ago, that one of our advisors made her cry because of the way he spoke to her on the phone. Now, some people might say it's bullying. Some people might say it's being an asshole, which is one of our core values of no assholes. However you define it, we still said, like, what? This is the environment we're creating in terms of how our employees treat each other, how our clients, so to speak, treat our employees, how we treat vendors. And we had a conversation with this person, and it doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter how much business they do or how much money they make. We set expectations within the company of how we operate and how we function and grow. And we just try to create across the entire company that sense of everybody falling in line with it.
And can I piggyback on that too? Because the opposite side is some people cry at the drop of a hat. My daughter cried at the drop of a hat. I worked with a woman years ago, cried at the drop of a hat. So no matter what you said, she was going to cry, or he was going to cry, or he was going to. So I came up with something that I teach companies all the time, and it's called a leader's blueprint. Because when it's time to have a difficult conversation, that's inevitable. You lead long enough, you're going to have a difficult conversation. But as a leader, we must also be willing to digest feedback from other people. However, we fail to tell people how they can come to us, and we fail to ask them how they want us to come to them. So if I'm bringing somebody on, I say, listen, we have an open door policy, which I don't really agree with all the time, but that's a different thing. At some point, I might have to ask some questions or say something that's hard to hear. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. And you may feel the same way. So, Brian, my preferred method to get the best me, please email me first. So some people like to knock at the door, contact on Slack, a text message. I am an email. Please email me. And here's the first sentence that you can say. Hey, Dre, I have an idea with this, or I have an issue. Here's my idea about it. Love to know what you like about it. If anything, you would fine tune. And then I also ask, what other information do you think that I need? And what, from, how much it's going to cost, what's the ROI, how much it's going to save, information from other departments, or anything else. You do those three things, boom. Either you have me now, or we could do it at a different time, but you got me. So, Brian, how do you want me to come to you if I have a question or need to have a difficult conversation? What's your blueprint? And I don't know what Brian's going to say, but I know Brian's answer is going to be different from Justin's answer, and Justin's answer is going to be different from Todd's. But now I know how to address everybody on my team, and now they know how to come to me. Now, whether they do it or not is up to them, but they have the information. My job is to be present and follow through when they do. And I would hope the same in return.
So Andre, that's a great pivot to the last point I wanted to touch on. I want to talk about positive leadership. Leadership has evolved a lot over the past decade. It had to, because the workplace has evolved. And leaders are adapting. And Todd, we're going to get to you, but I want to start with Justin. This leadership evolution, what are leaders doing right now? And what are they doing wrong? What do they need to wake up to right now?
Yeah, I think sometimes leaders need to get out of their own way. They don't start with leading with themselves. They go, my idea, here's what we're doing. I think being a little bit more open to opinions, being a little bit more open to new ideas from the people that they surround themselves with. There's a reason they have a board. There's a reason they have all these individuals to say, this is the only way I believe is the wrong way. Right. Like I love reading books on, biography books on leadership. And Bob Iger, who is currently the CEO of Disney for now, talked about how an incredible book. And he talked about how he approached leadership. Now, he was the second in command while Disney was going under. And he stated that, look, the end of the day, like if I go in and I try and apply for this job, they're going to go, no, you're part of the problem. And he said, well, how do I look at this differently? He advised people who were doing good within the organization. And he said, well, what do I do? I want this CEO job. What do I do? Right. And he decided that he was going to focus on three main things when everything was going wrong. He's like, I'm going to focus on three things and fix these things first. I think leaders come into place and they go, I already know what I know. I don't need to know anymore because I'm the leader. I'm the boss. Listen to me. But when you go into this idea of no, like I need to listen to the people around me, that changes the game. I think gone are the days of the leader who has all the answers. I'd rather walk into a boardroom with somebody who is leading it and says, here's what's going on. What do you guys think? Right. Like I think that gives power to the people around you, which lacks a lot of times in the workplace. And I think that also allows to have a good conversation. I mean, the CEO might have a direction they want to go, but you just gave him a brand new idea that opens his eyes to something he never saw before. And I'm not saying there aren't leaders out there that are doing it. I'm sure there's plenty that are. But that's the biggest mistake I see are the ones that think they know everything and it's my way or the highway, which sadly we see locally here all the time. And that's why these organizations aren't lasting around here.
Yeah. And Todd, I know a lot of your employees. They freaking love you. Todd, what's the special sauce? I mean, how have you evolved your leadership to
It's funny. I ask myself that question all the time because I'll be very open and honest with someone like Andre. If I was talking to him, I'm like, I don't know what it means to be. I became CEO in January. I don't know what that means. I always appreciate as Justin was talking about Bob Iger. I actually read that book. I love when you hear stories of so-and-so became the CEO of this big company. He started as, a guy in the back warehouse in the middle of, nowhere and worked his way up or her way up over 20 or 30 years. That's somebody who just understands the business and understands people. And that's where I really think that I haven't been taught anything. I started in the entertainment business. I became a financial advisor and somehow someone said, you guys should start your own firm. And I'm like, great, I'll do it. Because that's just how my mind works. And so I really try to just take I read a book years ago called Heart-Led Leader. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but it was all stories of people that just led from here and just are like, what is going to make it better for my employees? What's going to make it better for my staff? What do I want to do that's going to just bring joy to everybody in terms of showing up to work? That's just how I think about things, because I'm not going to be the guy that sits there and digs into the P&L and starts cost cutting and finding efficiencies and builds processes and does that. It's just not who I am. I have lots of people around me that do that and consult me, but I really just look at, okay, where do I want the business to go? How are we going to get there? And what can we do to just make it where nobody ever wants to leave, whether they're an employee or an independent contractor, and they just think there's nowhere else I want to be. I want my friends to come work here. And that's why, and I'm proud to be part of OneSeven. That's the one thing I always think in the back of my mind, because, and then I'll stop and let Dre take over. Like our industry, I think back to the 80s and 90s when people were proud to work at Merrill Lynch and they like wore it as a badge of honor on their sleeve. I want that. Like I want a financial advisor who works with me, who has nothing, like they don't have anything owed to me, to just be proud to be part of OneSeven and want to and be excited to tell people that. That's how I make decisions.
Oh, couldn't have said it better. The things that stand out for me are two big things. And one, you mentioned, what are leaders doing wrong? So many are doing a lot of things right. One of the things that I see get in the way is they choose busy over better. They're addicted to their busy. And because they're busy, they're focusing on the P&L sheets. They're focusing on the duties of the day. And they stop focusing and they get further and further away from the people. So the two big things that stand out for me that all leaders can do right is exhibiting great personal leadership and protecting their people. And you got to protect a couple things. I always start when I do a training or a speaking engagement. I break leadership down into two parts. One is personal leadership, and the other one is the skills it takes to effectively lead a team. But let's start with personal leadership first. How we choose to show up to our work, our life, and our relationships in a way that makes people want to follow you. The words we choose to use, how we email each other, email etiquette, how you walk to your office in the morning. It's not a sprint to see how fast you can get from the parking lot to your desk. I call it a scheduled path where you can bump into people and you can put all the hats on. You're not canceling your one-on-one meetings. I teach how to have the one-on-one meetings. It's the most human-to-human meeting that you can have that will enhance connection. And people will do so much more for you, with you, because of you, and forgive about some of the mistakes and dysfunction because they have a better connection with you. The other part is protection. Great leaders protect the vision of their organization, make their yeses powerful and their nos meaningful as it relates to the vision. But they also protect their people from two things. They protect them from themselves. You know who's rough around the edges. You know who the negative Nicks and Nancy are, the shortcutters are, the people who come in late. You protect people from themselves by maintaining high standards and high expectations and being willing to have difficult conversations due to it. We also have to, and we got to protect our inspired and motivated employees. Todd, you have a lot of people that want to do a lot of great things, but they'll say yes to the point of burnout. They say yes to the point where they don't take vacation. They say yes to the point where they're on their third marriage, and they're about to pass out of a heart attack. And sometimes we have to say, no, you need to take that. Not to mention, not only is it healthy for you, but the optics are bad. I want somebody to want to be you. And they don't want to be you when they see you emailing at your kid's game, working every weekend, on their heart attack, and their marriage suffer because they're never at home. So sometimes we have to protect our people from themselves. And then lastly, we have to protect our people from us.
And Todd, I want to go back to you because I know your core values, and you guys have a literal blueprint for, how you manage employee mental health and everything else. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. We named the company OneSeven because the marketing firm we worked with a decade ago came up with this concept of the 7 pillars of wellness, right? It's this idea that we're made up of 7 components of our lives: family, work, community, physical, financial, mental, spiritual. There's nothing else. Everything fits into one of those pillars, those elements. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 8, depending on what you read. And so we really try to focus on what can we do to help people unlock those parts of their lives where they aren't going to spend the time, right? Making sure people don't overwork, building the staffing so that people are not burnt out, like you just said, Andre. Literally sending gifts to our employees before they go on vacations, for them to enjoy the time away. So it's just those little things. It's those little things that make a difference inside a company. Employees acknowledging each other. We actually have a budget each year for employees to give props through this app to one another for work that they do. And then each quarter, whoever gets the most of them gets a cash bonus. We do spot bonuses for just somebody who goes above and beyond. Those are the things that I think create the right culture. And then it's like, you know what? Like you said, make sure you're taking your vacation. I had, as an aside, like last week, I had this thing, I'd never heard of it till last week, called a calcium scan to look at my heart for like calcification. And I was like, holy cow, I literally want to get one of those at our next conference and have every single person have one. Because what if I can prevent one person from having a heart attack because they're too lazy to go to the doctor and do this for themselves for $100, right? So those are the things where we can just change the relationship between us and our employees, or us and our advisors. And then I think it trickles down to how the advisors start to see their clients differently, right? Because we do that one time for our advisor, and our advisor says, you know what, I'm going to do an event and have all of my clients come and get a heart scan, because if I can prevent one client from having a heart attack, well, look at the world I've created then.
Yep. Justin Schenck, last word.
Oh, last word. I don't know.
No pressure, Justin. No pressure.
I know it said in the email you're choosing one person. Definitely didn't think it was coming to me. But no, I think the thing is, and really what we've talked about this whole entire time, no matter the topic, is just be a better person. Work every day to be a little bit better than you were the day before, whether that is, a better person in your home, a better person in your workplace, a better person to your clients, a better person to yourself. If we're able to do that, I think we move the needle on the bullies in the office. We move the needle on the disparity in politics. We move the needle on being better leaders. So go ahead and just be a better person. That would be my final word for today.
Awesome. I want to thank Justin Schenck, Todd Resnick, Andre Young, everybody who tuned in. We'll be coming back at you in January. This is the last episode of the year. I've got some big guests coming up in January. Tune in. Thank everybody for tuning in. Thank everybody for participating. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.